Over the years, Formula One has used a variety of different point systems. They have a profound effect on race strategy and driver tactics, particularly with title-deciding races. The current point system is the most expansive one in Formula One history, with 102 points up for grabs at each race. But what if this point system had always been in place? Which drivers and constructors would have gained and lost championships as a result? In this video, we're going to go back to the very beginning and see how each season would have unfolded with points for the top 10 finishers. Obviously, had this been in place from the start, it no doubt would have changed the results of countless races with endless different permutations at stake with far more points at your disposal. But there's no possible way to account for that, so here I've just done a direct conversion based on the official results from each race. With that out of the way, let's get started. 1950, Formula One's genesis. Despite being worlds apart from Formula One as we know it today, with front-engined wingless cars, no telemetry, advanced technical data or on-screen graphics, and little to no regard for driver, mechanic and spectator safety, there are still some names that are familiar to all today. Races at Silverstone, Monaco, Spa and Monza, Pirelli tyres, and teams like Alfa Romeo and Ferrari. At this time, Alfa Romeo were the team to beat, and it was teammates Giuseppe Farina and Juan Manuel Fangio battling closely for the title in this short season of only 6 races plus the Indy 500. But it was Farina who came out on top to become Formula One's first drivers' champion, scoring 30 points to Fangio's 27. In 1950, only the top 5 drivers scored points, with 8 for a win, 6 for second, 4 for third, 2 for fourth and 1 for fifth, plus a point for fastest lap, even if you didn't finish the race, whereas today you not only have to finish, but have to finish in the top 10. As well as this, only the best 4 results counted towards the championship. This is why Farina and Fangio's other teammate Luigi Fagioli has a second figure in parenthesis, with which he would have been runner-up. 2 other elements which also differ from the modern points system are that shared drives were commonplace, where 2 or sometimes even 3 drivers would share the same car during a race, at which point any points would be divided between the drivers, unless any of the drivers were deemed to have completed insufficient laps, such as with Peter Collins at Silverstone in 1957. This is not something that exists in modern Formula One, but I've used this rule as well. In modern Formula One, you need to have completed 90% of the race distance to be eligible to score points. In the 1950s, it was a bit more ambiguous, as it could be as little as 60% or just seeing the checkered flag, regardless of how many laps behind the winner you were. So, for this exercise, I have applied the 90% rule to all races. And when you apply this, the standings now look like this. Farina is still champion, having tripled his points tally, but Fangio loses his runner-up spot to Fagioli, who loses by only 3 points despite not winning any races, as he finished second 4 times and third once. I'm listing only the top 10 as far more drivers raced each season than today, mostly because of the Indy 500, despite the fact that virtually no Formula One drivers actually took part in it. But we can see here that Louis Chiron has been pushed out of the top 10, and Philippe Etoncelin has rocketed up from 18th to 9th, who as well as Peter Whitehead and Prince Bira has displaced Bill Holland, who finished second in the Indy 500. Farina was unable to defend the title in 1951, and Fangio now came out on top, beating Ferrari rival Alberto Ascari by a comfortable 6 points. A shared drive with Fagioli at the French Grand Prix giving him half points for the win actually narrows his margin with the modern points system, with him taking the title from Ascari by only 4.5 points. Indy 500 winner Lee Wallard drops from 7th to 9th, behind Felice Benetto and Louis Rosier, who jumps from 13th to 8th. Reg Parnell as well stays put but displaces Indy 500 runner-up Mike Nazaruk. Ascari was totally unstoppable in 1952, winning 6 of the 8 races that year, beating Farina to the title by 12 points. With the modern points system, he now beats Farina by a colossal 63.5 points. The reason for the half point, which you can also see on Jose Froilán González's score, is because at the time, lap times were not measured with the same accuracy as they are now, only down to 1/10 of a second rather than 1,000th. And so, because Ascari and Gonzalez set the same fastest lap at the season-ending Italian Grand Prix, the point was shared between them. Outside of this, Rudi Fischer drops from 4th to 6th, Indy 500 winner Troy Ruttman drops from 7th to 9th, and Jean Bayraud jumps from 11th to 7th. Ascari dominated in 1953 once again, beating Fangio by 6.5 points. With conversion, this increases to 33.5 points, with him once again sharing the fastest lap with Gonzalez at the British Grand Prix. This time, however, it's Mike Hawthorn who's runner-up, with Fangio and Farina's retirements at the start of the season doing them no favours. Indy 500 winner Bill Vukovic drops from 7th to 10th, and Maurice Trintignant jumps from 12th to 9th. From 1954, the best 5 results counted towards the championship. Fangio's reliability gremlins disappeared, and he claimed his second title by 16 and 6/7 of a point from Gonzalez, which using all results would have been 31 and 9/14 of a point. The reason for these mind-bending scores is because 7 drivers set the same fastest lap at the British Grand Prix, and so the point was split 7 ways, with the 9/14 coming because of half points for shared drives. Using the modern points system, only 4 of the 7 fastest laps drivers finished in the top 10, so the point is split a far less dizzying 4 ways, and Fangio wins the title by a gargantuan 95.5 points. Roberto Mieres jumps from 11th to 6th, Sergio Mantovani rockets up from 16th to 7th, and Prince Beaver from 17th to 9th, dropping Hans Hermann from 7th to 8th and Indy 500 winner Bill Vukovic from 6th to 10th. Title number 3 came for Fangio in 1955, beating a young Stirling Moss by 17 points. With conversion, this goes up to 52 points, almost double Moss's score. Maurice Trintignant just edges out Eugenio Castellotti for 3rd, and Piero Taruffi and Indy 500 winner Bob Zwickert drop behind Jean Bayraud, Roberto Mieres and Luigi Musso. Fangio won his 3rd consecutive title in 1956, though doing 3 different shared drives meant it was much closer, with him beating Moss by only 3 points. With conversion, this increases to a more comfortable 10.5 points, but now over Bayraud instead of Moss. Paco Gaudia moves from 9th to 6th, Castellotti displaces Indy 500 winner Pat Flaherty, and Sam Hanks and Paul Frere are pushed out of the top 10 in place of Louis Rosier, who jumps from 19th to 9th, and Cesare Perdisa, who jumps from 16th to 10th. Fangio won his 5th and final championship in 1957, finishing 1st or 2nd in all but one race to beat Moss, again, by 15 points. With conversion, this becomes a very healthy 58.5 points. Musso and Hawthorn are now tied on points, but Musso wins on countback. Harry Schell stops places with Tony Brooks, Indy 500 winner Sam Hanks drops out of the top 10, and Stuart Lewis-Evans jumps from 12th to 9th. Mike Hawthorn became the first British champion in 1958. However, it could have been Stirling Moss, who essentially voluntarily gave the title away after vouching to have Hawthorn's points reinstated after his disqualification at the Portuguese Grand Prix, and therefore lost the title by 1 point, with the best 6 results now counting towards the championship. With modern points, however, this becomes a much larger 24 points, also clinching the title 1 round earlier. Harry Schell breaks the British monopoly at the top by jumping from 6th to 4th. Peter Collins' untimely death at the German Grand Prix now drops him from 5th to 7th, and a young Jack Brabham jumps from 18th to 10th. This season also saw the advent of the Constructors' Championship, which at the time was called the International Cup for F1 manufacturers. Instead of simply adding up the points for each driver for each team, however, only the best result for each constructor was taken from each race, and once again only the best 6 results. Van Wall won the first title, but with conversion they're blown out of the water by Ferrari, as there are very few other finishes for Van Wall than the wins. Mike Hawthorn did not live to defend his title in 1959, and it was won by Jack Brabham by 4 points from Tony Brooks, as it went back to being only the best 5 results that counted. With conversion, this becomes 25 points. The ever unlucky Moss swaps places with Trintignant, and Harry Schell knocks Indy 500 winner Roger Ward out of the top 10. In the Constructors' battle, it's a very comfortable win for Cooper Climax. You'll notice Cooper appears 3 times, as this was the age of customer and privateer teams, and it was common to see single entrants who would just buy another team's car to run as their own, often with different engines, which is why the number of teams was much larger than the number of constructors. So, in the 1950s, despite the massively different points system, relatively little has changed, with the only new champions being Ferrari beating Vanwall to the first constructors' title in 1958. For 1960, the first major points change came with an extra point given for 6th place, and once again the best 6 results counting towards the championship. The fastest lap point was also abolished. Jack Brabham successfully defended his title and beat teammate Bruce McLaren by 9 points, which with conversion increases to 18 points. Phil Hill jumps both Stirling Moss and Innes Ireland. Wolfgang von Trips goes from tying on points of Olivier Gendebien to beating him by 17, and a rookie Jim Clark displaces Indy 500 winner Jim Rathman and Richie Ginther. In the Constructors' Battle, Cooper beat Lotus by a considerably larger margin with conversion than without, with almost double their points. For 1961, the race winner was now awarded 9 points instead of 8, though it remained as 8 for the constructors, and it went back down to the best 5 results counting. Phil Hill became the first American champion, beating Ferrari teammate Wolfgang von Trips by 1 point, who had been the favourite most of the season until his death at the Italian Grand Prix. With conversion, he beats him by 22 points, however, giving more legitimacy to his title. Dan Gurney storms ahead of Moss to go 3rd, Bruce McLaren swaps with Innes Ireland, Tony Brooks moves up to 9th, and one-time rookie winner Giancarlo Baghetti is knocked out of the top 10 by Joe Bonnier jumping up from 15th. In the Constructors' Battle, Ferrari win by a far bigger margin with modern points, and Cooper moved from 4th to 3rd. For 1962, the Constructors were also given an extra point for a win. Graham Hill won the first title for BRM by 12 points from Jim Clark, which with conversion becomes a 49-point gap over Bruce McLaren instead. South African Tony Maggs jumps from 7th to 5th, and Joe Bonnier once again jumps from 15th to 10th. BRM beat Lotus in the Constructors' Championship by a relatively narrow 13 points, and Lola in their debut season swapped places with Ferrari. The best 6 results counted in 1963. Jim Clark blew everyone out of the water to score almost double the points of defending champion Graham Hill, which was almost triple when including all results. With conversion, he wins the title by 96 points, now from Richie Ginther, but actually clinches the title 1 round later than in real life. Hill goes from tying with Ginther to being 26 points behind, and Joe Bonnier breaks into the top 10. A comfortable win for Lotus in the Constructors' Battle in real life is markedly less comfortable with conversion with a lead of only 23 points. Cooper jumped from 5th to 3rd, and Lotus BRM swapped places with BRP. A closely fought title battle in 1964 went to John Surtees by just 1 point, despite the fact that Graham Hill scored more points across the season. With conversion, however, we finally get our first different drivers' champion, as Hill denies Surtees the honour of being world champion on both 2 and 4 wheels and clinches his second championship by 6 points, and Richie Ginther swaps places with Lorenzo Bandini. As well as Surtees losing the drivers' title, Ferrari also lose the constructors' title to BRM. Most of 1965 was dominated by Jim Clark, who still clinched his second title by 14 points from Graham Hill despite a few dodgy races at the end. With conversion, those dodgy races proved much more perilous, and after scoring no points in the final 3 rounds, he denies Hill a third title by just 1 point. Further down, Mike Spence swaps places with Richie Ginther. Nothing changes on the constructors' front, with Lotus still getting a comfortable win. Jack Brabham made history in 1966 by winning his third title with his own car. It went back to being the best 5 results that counted, and he beat Surtees by 14 points. With conversion it goes up to 65 points, but he clinches the title 1 round later than in real life. The Constructors' battle is a bit closer, and Brabham clinch it from Cooper by 26 points, who comfortably beat Ferrari to the runners-up spot, and newcomers McLaren drop out of the top 10. There was a big change to the way points were tallied in 1967. As the season had now grown quite a lot in length since 1950, the best 9 results would be taken from 11 races, with 5 from the first 6 and 4 from the last 5. Consistency allowed Denny Hulme to beat his boss Jack Brabham to the title by 5 points. With conversion, this increases to 11 points. Chris Amon jumps ahead of John Surtees, and Mike Spence jumps from 10th to 7th. Brabham won the Constructors' battle comfortably with 21 points over Lotus, and with conversion they blow them out of the water and get more than double their points. Honda also dropped 2 places behind Ferrari and BRM. For 1968, it was the best 5 results from the first and last 6 races that counted. Graham Hill won his second title that year by 12 points from Jackie Stewart, which with conversion becomes his third title by 17 points. Jean-Pierre Beltois also jumps John Surtees. Lotus comfortably win the Constructors' title in both scenarios, and Honda drop down again from 6th to 8th. For 1969, it went back to the best 5 results from the first half and the best 4 from the second half that counted. Jackie Stewart dominated to win his first title by 26 points from Jackie Ickx. With conversion, this becomes 62 points. Jochen Rindt drops from 4th to 7th, and Jack Brabham swaps with Joe Siffert. Matra also take a comfortable win in the Constructors' Championship. So, in the 1960s, at long last there are some notable changes, with John Surtees and Ferrari losing both titles in 1964 to Graham Hill and BRM. For 1970, the enlarged grid meant 6 of the first 7 races and 5 of the last 6 races were counted. This was the year famous for the dominance of Jochen Rindt, who was so far ahead when he was killed at the Italian Grand Prix that nobody could catch him in the remaining races, and he became Formula One's first, and so far only, posthumous world champion. With modern points, however, he does not win the championship, and it instead goes to Jackie Ickx, who clinches it by 3 points, having been 60 points behind when Rindt died. If Twitter had existed in 1970, I think you can imagine how this would have been received. Defending champion Jackie Stewart and Jack Brabham both drop a few places as well. As well as this, Lotus also lose what was a relatively comfortable Constructors' victory by only 7 points, but drops a third behind Ferrari and March. For 1971, 5 of the first 6 races and 4 of the last 5 races counted. Jackie Stewart dominated to beat rookie Ronnie Peterson by 29 points. With conversion, this increases to 67 points. Joe Siffert gets ahead of defending champion Jackie Ickx, and Mario Andretti, Peter Gethin and Pedro Rodriguez are all pushed out of the top 10. It's also a very comfortable winning margin for Tyrrell in the Constructors' Championship of 109 points, proportionally less than the 29 points in real life. Surtees also jumps from 8th to 6th. In 1972, it went back to 5 of the first 7 races and 5 of the last 6 counting. The Lotus of Emerson Fittipaldi toppled defending champion Jackie Stewart to take his first title by 16 points. With modern points, this increases to 36. Ronnie Peterson and Chris Amon both jump up 3 places. In the Constructors' fight, we have by far our biggest conversion yet. Lotus won fairly comfortably in real life, but with modern points, despite their drivers only finishing 3rd, 5th, 16th and 29th in the driver standings, McLaren annihilate Lotus, who drop to 4th behind Ferrari and beat Tyrrell by 54 points. As well as this, March get 32 points ahead of Surtees, and Brabham finished ahead of Matra despite having just over half their points in real life. For 1973, 6 of the first 8 races and 6 of the last 7 races counted. Jackie Stewart comfortably won his third and final title by a comfortable 16 points from defending champion Emerson Fittipaldi, despite withdrawing from the final race after the untimely death of his teammate Francois Savert. With conversion, this becomes 42 points. Savert also posthumously takes third place from Ronnie Peterson, and James Hunt finishes ahead of Jean-Pierre Beltois. Lotus won the Constructors' Battle in real life despite not taking the Drivers' title, but with modern points it goes to Tyrrell by a comfortable 58 points. March and BRM swap places, and Surtees finish ahead of Shadow. Emerson Fittipaldi won his second title in 1974, this time with McLaren by only 3 points from Clay Regazzoni. With conversion, this increases to only 5 points. Niki Lauda, having been title favourite for most of the year, drops from 4th to 5th, and James Hunt drops from 8th to 10th. In the Constructors' Battle, a comfortable win for McLaren remains a comfortable win with a 59-point margin over Ferrari. Brabham finish ahead of Lotus, BRM drop from 7th to 9th, and Lola jump up from 12th to 10th. In 1975, it was 6 of the first and last 7 races that counted. Niki Lauda came through to comfortably win his first title by 19.5 points from defending champion Emerson Fittipaldi, in what was also the first year to have shortened races where half points were awarded. With modern points, this increases to a very healthy 66 points, and he also clinches the title 1 round earlier. Jochen Mass also swaps places with Carlos Pace. Ferrari's 18.5 point victory margin in the Constructors' Championship increases to 69.5 points, this time over McLaren instead of Brabham. Tyrrell jump far ahead of Hesketh, March move ahead of Lotus and Shadow, and Williams drop out of the top 10. For 1976, 7 each of the first, last and 8 races counted. Immortalised by the 2013 movie Rush, 1976 saw an epic battle between the focused, calculating, defending champion Niki Lauda and the abrasive, womanising James Hunt. Hunt eventually took the title by 1 point after Lauda made a miracle recovery after his near death at the Nürburgring and then voluntarily retired at the final round. With conversion, however, miracles do happen, and Lauda comes back from the brink of death to take his second title. Ferrari keep their win in the Constructors' fight, but McLaren lose second to Tyrrell and March move up 2 places. For 1977, 8 of the first 9 and 7 of the last 8 races counted. Niki Lauda dominated to win his second title by 17 points from Jody Scheckter with 2 rounds to spare, which he sat out due to his deteriorating relationship with Ferrari. With conversion, he beats Scheckter by 49 points to take his third consecutive title. Carlos Reutemann finishes third in place of Mario Andretti, and Jacques Laffite jumps from 10th to 7th. A 32-point margin of victory for Ferrari in the Constructors' Championship becomes a whopping 142 points, now from McLaren rather than Lotus with their innovative Type 78, and Fittipaldi drop out of the top 10. In 1978, 7 each of the first and last 8 races counted. This was the year that heralded the ground effect era, where Lotus improved upon the pioneering Venturi tunnels and side skirts of the Type 78 with the Type 79, which gave Mario Andretti the title by 13 points over late teammate Ronnie Peterson, leaving all other teams scrambling to come up with similar designs of their own. With conversion, this becomes 35 points, and after his death, Peterson loses the runner-up spot to Carlos Reutemann. Jacques Laffite and Emerson Fittipaldi both move up 1 place. Lotus win their first Constructors' title in 10 years by 120 points, now from Brabham, who finish ahead of Ferrari. McLaren shoot up from 8th to 5th, and Ligier finish ahead of Wolff. For 1979, only 8 races counted, with the best 4 from the first 7 and also from the last 8. In the Constructors' Championship, however, all results from all races were now counted. Ferrari had perfected their own ground effect design, which allowed Jody Scheckter to take the title by 4 points from teammate Gilles Villeneuve. With conversion, this becomes 23 points. Patrick Depailler drops from 6th to 8th, and René Arnoux drops out of the top 10. Ferrari's 38-point win over Williams in the Constructors' Championship becomes 133 points, and Arrows move ahead of Brabham. So, in the 1970s there are some significant changes. Jochen Rindt never becomes champion and instead Jackie Ickx does. James Hunt also never does, which gives Niki Lauda 3 consecutive titles. In the Constructors' standings, Lotus lose 3 titles which go to Ferrari, McLaren and Tyrrell. For 1980, 5 of the first and also last 7 races counted. Alan Jones became the first champion for Williams, beating Nelson Piquet by 13 points. This margin becomes 41 points with conversion. Carlos Reutemann is now only 3 points behind Piquet. Gilles Villeneuve shoots up from 14th to 8th, a rookie Alain Prost goes from 16th to 9th, and Jean-Pierre Jarier goes from 13th to 10th. Williams' 54-point win in the Constructors' Championship increases to a proportionally smaller 150 points. McLaren jump from 9th to 5th, and Ferrari's miserable title defence is somewhat sullied by moving from 10th to 8th. From 1981, the best 11 races counted from any part of the season. An incredibly close fight ended with Nelson Piquet taking the title by just 1 point from Carlos Reutemann, with only 7 points separating the top 5 drivers. With conversion, Piquet's lead increases to 3 points, and the gap between the top 5 increases to 40 points. Elio De Angelis finishes ahead of Gilles Villeneuve, and Hector Rabaque drops out of the top 10. Williams' successful defence of the Constructors' title increases from a 34-point lead to 100 points. Lotus swap places with Ferrari, and Arrows drop from 8th to 10th. "1982 was one of the most competitive seasons in Formula One history, with no one driver winning more than 2 races, but was also marred by the deaths of Gilles Villeneuve and Riccardo Paletti. It was eventually won by Keke Rosberg, beating Didier Pironi by 5 points, who missed the final 5 rounds after injuring himself in Germany. With conversion, his lead increases to 23 points, but is now over John Watson, but he manages to clinch the title 1 round earlier. Michele Alboreto jumps from 8th to 5th, Elio De Angelis jumps from 9th to 7th, and Patrick Tambay overtakes René Arnoux. Ferrari won the Constructors' title by 5 points from McLaren, which only increases to 10 points. Williams won the Drivers' title but still only moved from 4th to 3rd. Tyrrell overtake Lotus, and Brabham changed their engine supply mid-season, so with their points split they are 8th and 10th. Ground effect came to an end in 1983, and Nelson Piquet took his second title by only 2 points from Alain Prost. With conversion, however, Prost takes his first title by just 1 point. Jacques Laffite goes from 11th to 8th, and Derek Warwick goes from 14th to 9th. Ferrari won the Constructors' title by 10 points despite René Arnoux and Patrick Tambay finishing 3rd and 4th, and with conversion their win margin increases to 29 points and Tyrrell and Lotus drop 2 places. "1984 saw a close battle between Alain Prost and Niki Lauda at McLaren that ended with Lauda making history by taking his 3rd title by just half a point. With conversion, however, Prost successfully defends the title and wins by 3.5 points. René Arnoux moves up 2 places to 4th, and Nigel Mansell drops out of the top 10. McLaren's all-conquering dominance in the Constructors' Championship is slightly less dominant, with them getting just under double the points of Ferrari, and Ozella jumped from 12th to 10th. Alain Prost won his first title in 1985 by 20 points from Michele Alboreto. With conversion, this becomes his 3rd consecutive title, beating Alboreto by 73 points. Elio De Angelis jumps from 5th to 3rd, and Niki Lauda drops out of the top 10. McLaren won their 2nd consecutive Constructors' title by a relatively narrow 8 points from Ferrari, which increases to only 9 points. Lotus jump Williams, and Tyrrell's run with Renault engines trumps their one with Ford. The title went to Alain Prost in 1986 again after a titanic 3-way fight with Nelson Piquet and Nigel Mansell, with Mansell famously being taken out of the fight in the last race by a tyre blowout. He beat Mansell by 2 points to take his second consecutive title, but with conversion takes his fourth consecutive title by 8 points, with Piquet another 4 points behind. Elsewhere, René Arnoux jumps from 10th to 7th. A dominant victory margin for Williams of 45 points in the Constructors' Championship increases to 117 points. Ligier overtake Ferrari, and Arrows jump from 10th to 8th. Nelson Piquet won his third title in 1987 by 12 points after teammate Nigel Mansell injured his back with 2 rounds to go. With conversion, he breaks Prost's streak to win his second title by 39 points from Ayrton Senna. Stefan Johansson finishes ahead of Gerhard Berger, Michele Alboreto drops from 7th to 9th, and Eddie Cheever drops out of the top 10. That year, the Jim Clark Trophy was also awarded to the handful of drivers running naturally aspirated engines, which was comfortably won by Jonathan Palmer. In the Constructors' Championship, Williams maintained their dominant win with a 136-point lead over McLaren. Further back, Zack Speed overtake Lola. (1988) saw the start of the infamous Senna-Prost rivalry, who were battling miles ahead of the rest of the grid in the all-conquering McLaren MP44. Senna eventually took his first title by 3 points from Prost. With conversion, however, Prost blows him out of the water and takes his fifth title by 31 points. Derek Warwick goes from 8th to 6th, and Nigel Mansell drops out of the top 10. McLaren unsurprisingly monopolised the Constructors' Championship, and a 134-point lead increases to a gargantuan 354. Lotus drop from 4th to 6th, and Lola drop out of the top 10. The Senna-Prost rivalry intensified in 1989, and after unsuccessfully running into Senna at Suzuka and taking himself out, Prost won his third title by 16 points after Senna won the race but then got disqualified for incorrectly rejoining the track. In this timeline, Prost wins his record-breaking 6th title by 73 points, which means he actually clinches the title 2 rounds earlier, somewhat diluting the drama of the collision. As well as this, Thierry Boutsen jumps Nigel Mansell, and a rookie Jean Alesi drops out of the top 10. A slightly less dominant but still comfortable Constructors' victory for McLaren increases from a 64-point gap to Williams to a 160-point gap. Arrows jump from 7th to 5th, and Onyx drop out of the top 10. So, in the 1980s, things do start to look quite different. There are no new Constructors' champions, but the real star of the show is Alain Prost, who takes titles away from Nelson Piquet, Niki Lauda and Ayrton Senna. The Senna-Prost rivalry reached its zenith in 1990, as Senna got his own back against Prost at Suzuka, this time by punting him off and claiming his second title by 7 points. In this timeline, however, he wins his first title, but by only 6 points, and therefore secures it in Adelaide rather than Suzuka after he retires and Prost finishes third. Thierry Boutsen also overtakes Nigel Mansell, and Ivan Capelli drops out of the top 10. An 11-point win over Ferrari for McLaren in the Constructors' Championship becomes a 46-point win. Elsewhere, Brabham drop out of the top 10. (1991) saw the first points change in 10 years, as an extra point was given for first, and finally, at long last, all race results counted. Senna won his third title in a very convincing fashion by 24 points from Nigel Mansell. With modern points, this margin increases to 76.5 points, and he wins his second title a round earlier. Stefano Modena also drops from 8th to 10th. McLaren won their fourth consecutive Constructors' title, originally by 14 points and now by 42. Leighton House also drop out of the top 10. (1992) was the year that technical innovation in Formula 1 reached its peak, with Williams leading the pack with their FW14B with its traction control, launch control, ABS, active suspension and onboard telemetry, allowing Nigel Mansell to storm his way to the title, 52 points ahead of teammate Riccardo Patrese. With conversion, this increases to 102 points, the largest yet, but now from Michael Schumacher rather than Patrese, and he wins the title a round later. Gerhard Berger as well finishes ahead of Ayrton Senna, and Michele Alboreto jumps from 10th to 7th. Williams' winning margin in the Constructors' Championship goes from 65 points to 166 points, and McLaren lose the runners-up spot to Benetton. Footwork sensationally jump from 7th to 4th, Ligier move up a place, and March drop out of the top 10. Williams replicated their success in 1993, this time with Alain Prost, who won his 4th title by 26 points from Ayrton Senna. With conversion, this becomes his 7th title by 68 points. Martin Brundle also moves from 7th to 6th, and Mark Blundell moves from 10th to 8th. Williams become even more dominant in the Constructors' Championship, with an 84-point lead increasing to 219 points. Ligier moved from 5th to 4th, Lotus from 8th to 6th, and Larousse overtake Footwork. "1994 was the year that Formula One's speed finally caught up with it, marred by the deaths of Ayrton Senna and Roland Ratzenberger and serious injuries for Karl Wendlinger and Andrea Montemini. A season dominated by Michael Schumacher and the suspiciously fast Benetton B194 went down to the wire after he was disqualified from 2 races and banned from 2 others, and a collision with Damon Hill at Adelaide gave him the title by 1 point. With modern points, however, his antics catch up with him, and after inadvertently taking himself off the road as well as his rival, he loses the title to Damon Hill by 15 points. Nigel Mansell and Jos Verstappen also both drop out of the top 10. Williams' Constructors' triumph increases from a 15-point gap to Benetton to 51 points, and Sauber also beat Tyrrell. There was another intense fight between Damon Hill and Michael Schumacher in 1995, including a few more collisions between them. Several errors from Hill meant Schumacher won his 2nd title by 33 points. With conversion, Schumacher wins his 1st title by 77 points. Johnny Herbert takes 3rd from David Coulthard, and Mika Hakkinen drops from 7th to 10th and has his place taken by Heinz-Harald Frentzen. Benetton win their 1st Constructors' title now by 81 points instead of 25. Jordan and Sauber swap around, and so do Footwork and Tyrrell. Williams were back on top again in 1996, and Damon Hill took his 1st title by 19 points from rookie teammate Jacques Villeneuve. With conversion, it's his 2nd title by 32 points. A trouncing by Williams, where they won the Constructors' title by 105 points from Ferrari, increases to 241 points, but now from Benetton, with Ferrari avoiding also losing 3rd place to McLaren by just 1 point. "1997 saw a season-long battle between Jacques Villeneuve and Michael Schumacher that culminated in another title-deciding collision that saw Schumacher excluded from the championship and Villeneuve crowned champion by 39 points from Heinz-Harald Frentzen and 3 points ahead of Schumacher. With modern points, Schumacher's exclusion is made all the more painful, as without it he would have won the title by 6 points. Villeneuve's gap to Frentzen is now 69 points. Jean Alesi takes 3rd from David Coulthard, Giancarlo Fisichella and Eddie Irvine swap places, and so do Olivier Panis and Johnny Herbert. Williams' most recent Constructors' victory is now a 55-point gap to Ferrari rather than 21 points. In 1998, there was a tense battle between Mika Hakkinen and Michael Schumacher. The battle went down to the wire and was won by Hakkinen by 14 points. With conversion, this becomes 33 points. Damon Hill loses 6th to Heinz-Harald Frentzen, and Alexander Wurz loses 8th to Giancarlo Fisichella. McLaren won their 1st Constructors' title in 7 years by 23 points from Ferrari, which now becomes 38 points. Benetton take 4th from Jordan, and Minardi take 9th from Prost. Schumacher attempted to come back at Hakkinen in 1999, but this was cut short by him breaking his leg at Silverstone and missing 7 races. Hakkinen 5 times retired from pole and saw a strong challenge from Eddie Irvine and Heinz-Harald Frentzen, but came through to take his 2nd title by 2 points from Irvine. With conversion, however, these mistakes prove costly, and it's Irvine that wins the championship by 17 points, meaning he also wins the title a round earlier than Häkkinen did, and becomes Ferrari's first drivers' champion in 20 years. Schumacher's absence means he loses 5th place to his brother Ralf, and Johnny Herbert loses 8th to Giancarlo Fisichella. Ferrari's narrow 4-point constructors' victory over McLaren increases to 46 points. Williams take 4th from Stewart, and Minardi and BAR both knock Arrows out of the top 10. So, in the 90s, we once again see a fair few changes. Schumacher and Häkkinen prove how costly errors and dirty driving can be by giving titles away to Damon Hill, Jacques Villeneuve and Eddie Irvine, and Williams and McLaren remain the stars of the constructors' battle. In 2000, Schumacher finally managed to topple McLaren and Häkkinen and took his 3rd drivers' title and Ferrari's first in 21 years by 19 points from Häkkinen. With modern points, Eddie Irvine has of course already claimed the drivers' title for Ferrari the year before, and then receives the full Damon Hill treatment by moving to Jaguar, and Schumacher claims his 2nd title by 21 points from Häkkinen, winning it a round later. Jacques Villeneuve takes 6th from Giancarlo Fisichella, and Mika Salo jumps Jarno Trulli and Heinz-Harald Frentzen. Ferrari won the constructors as well by 19 points, which would have been 9 without McLaren having the points from Häkkinen's win at Hungary taken away due to a missing seal. That missing seal, however, costs McLaren the title, with them losing to Ferrari by 18 points. BAR take 4th from Benetton, and Arrows drop from 6th to 8th. Schumacher took his 4th title with ease in 2001 by 58 points from David Coulthard. With conversion, this becomes his 3rd title by 116 points, and he wins the title a round later. Nick Heidfeld overtakes Jacques Villeneuve, and Kimi Raikkonen overtakes Jarno Trulli. Ferrari win their 3rd consecutive constructors title by 77 points from McLaren, which now becomes 179 points. Jaguar also overtake Benetton by 1 point. Schumacher raised the bar even higher in 2002 and set a new record by finishing on the podium in every race and won his 5th driver's title by 67 points from teammate Rubens Barrichello. With conversion, this is his 4th title by 159 points from Barrichello, and he clinches the title a round later. David Coulthard takes 4th from Ralf Schumacher, and Nick Heidfeld and Giancarlo Fisichella overtake Jarno Trulli and Eddie Irvine. Ferrari won their 4th consecutive constructors title by 129 points from Williams, and now win it by a massive 281 points. BAR takes 7th from Jaguar, and Toyota take 9th from Minardi. The first points change in 12 years came in 2003, with the top 8 now getting points. Schumacher got a strong challenge from Kimi Raikkonen and Juan Pablo Montoya that year, but came through to take his record-breaking 6th drivers' title by 2 points from Raikkonen. With modern points, this becomes his 5th title by a rather more comfortable 26 points, and he does so a round earlier. Ferrari's win in the Constructors' Championship goes from 14 points over Williams to 51 points. Schumacher was back on top in 2004 and won his 7th Drivers' Championship by 34 points from teammate Barrichello. In modern points, this is his 6th title by 101 points, and he clinches the title 1 round later. Juan Pablo Montoya takes 4th from Fernando Alonso, and Giancarlo Fisichella pushes David Coulthard out of the top 10. Ferrari's 6th consecutive Constructors' title goes from being won by 143 points from BAR to 354 points. Schumacher and Ferrari's dominance came to an end in 2005, and Fernando Alonso and Kimi Raikkonen fought for the title, with Alonso winning it by 21 points. With the modern system, he wins it by 38 points. Renault's 9-point victory over McLaren in the Constructors' Championship drops to just 6 points. Red Bull also takes 6th from BAR. Schumacher tried to take the title back in 2006 but ultimately failed, and Alonso took his 2nd driver's title by 13 points. With conversion, this becomes 23 points. Nick Heidfeld also takes 8th from Juan Pablo Montoya. Renault successfully defended the Constructors' title by just 5 points from Ferrari, and with modern points this becomes 4. "2007 was marked by the titanic battle between defending champion Fernando Alonso and the rookie Lewis Hamilton. Their own internal squabbles and the fallout of the Spygate scandal meant Kimi Raikkonen came from behind to take the title by 1 point from both drivers. With modern points he takes it by 9 points, and Alonso takes the runners-up spot and breaks 2 points ahead of Hamilton. Ferrari comfortably took the Constructors' title by 103 points from BMW Sauber after McLaren had a large number of their points deducted and were then excluded from the championship. With modern points the gap increases to 257 points. Honda also takes 7th from Toro Rosso. Felipe Massa and Lewis Hamilton went back and forth in 2008, and for about 40 seconds it looked as if Massa was champion, until Hamilton passed Timo Glock on the last corner of the last lap to take his first title by 1 point. Even with the modern point system, Hamilton still wins the title by just 1 point. Ferrari took their most recent Constructors' title by 21 points from McLaren, which now increases to 57 points. "2009 was the fairy tale year where Honda rose from the ashes as Brawn GP and took the Constructors' title and the Drivers' title with Jenson Button by 11 points from Sebastian Vettel. With conversion this increases to 32.5 points, with the Malaysian Grand Prix being the first race to give half points since 1991. Kimi Raikkonen also takes 5th from Lewis Hamilton. An 18.5 point victory for Brawn GP in the Constructors' Championship increases to 52.5 points. Ferrari also go from 1 point behind McLaren to 3 points ahead, and Williams takes 6th from BMW Sauber. As we get closer and closer to the current point system, there are fewer changes to the standings, and in the 2000s there are no new drivers or Constructors' champions, and the only speculative change is that McLaren would have won the Constructors' title in 2000 without Häkkinen's penalty. And now we reach 2010, and from here on the results are basically the same, as the only difference is the fastest lap point, so we'll skim through this decade quickly. Sebastian Vettel's title-winning margin to Fernando Alonso in 2010 decreases from 4 to 3 points, and Lewis Hamilton is now only 1 point away from taking 3rd from Mark Webber. Red Bull's Constructors' victory over McLaren increases from 44 to 45 points, and Ferrari are now 59 points behind McLaren rather than 58. Vettel's gap to Jenson Button in 2011 remains the same. Webber gets 7th fastest lap, so goes from 12 points behind Button to 8, and is now 7 points ahead of Alonso instead of 1. Red Bull's Constructors' margin over McLaren increases from 153 points to 157, and McLaren's lead over Ferrari increases from 152 points to 155. Vettel increases his winning margin over Alonso in 2012 from 3 to 9 points. Raikkonen is now 19 points ahead of Hamilton instead of 17. Button now ties on points with Hamilton, but Hamilton keeps 4th on countback. Button goes from 9 points ahead of Webber to 10, and Nico Rosberg goes from 3 to 2 points behind Romain Grosjean. Red Bull's margin over Ferrari in the Constructors' Championship increases from 60 points to 67 points, and McLaren go from 22 points behind Ferrari to 20. Vettel becomes the first driver to score more than 400 points in a season in 2013 and increases his 155 point gap over Alonso to 160 points. Webber increases his gap over Hamilton from 10 points to 14 points, and Raikkonen goes from 6 points behind Hamilton to 5. Red Bull's 246 point margin over Mercedes in the Constructors' Championship increases to 247, and Ferrari go from 6 points behind Mercedes to 5. Things look a little different in 2014, as of course that was the year of the controversial double points awarded at the final round, which I've omitted from this. Hamilton's gap over Rosberg drops dramatically from 67 points to 44 points. Vettel goes from 19 points behind Valtteri Bottas to 7, Massa and Button tie on points but Massa stays ahead on countback, and Kevin Magnussen pushes Sergio Perez out of the top 10. Mercedes' gap to Red Bull in the Constructors' Championship remains at 296 points. Williams dropped from 116 points ahead of Ferrari to 75, Ferrari's gap to McLaren increases from 35 to 42, and McLaren's gap to Force India increases from 26 to 29. Hamilton's gap to Rosberg in 2015 increases from 67 points to 72 points. Rosberg's gap to Vettel increases from 44 points to 48, and Daniel Ricciardo takes 7th from teammate Daniel Kvyat. Mercedes' gap to Ferrari in the Constructors' Championship increases from 275 points to 285. Rosberg's gap to Hamilton in 2016 increases from 5 points to 8, and Vettel increases his gap to Max Verstappen from 8 points to 10. Mercedes' gap to Red Bull in the Constructors' Championship increases from 297 points to 301, and McLaren's gap to Toro Rosso decreases from 13 points to 12. Hamilton's gap to Vettel in 2017 increases from 47 points to 52 points. Vettel's gap to Bottas increases from 12 to 15, and Raikkonen's gap to Ricciardo increases from 5 to 6. Mercedes' gap to Ferrari in the Constructors' Championship increases from 146 points to 148. Hamilton's gap to Vettel in 2018 remains the same, but Bottas jumps from 5th to 3rd. Mercedes' gap to Ferrari in the Constructors' Championship increases from 84 points to 89, and Ferrari's gap to Red Bull decreases from 152 points to 150. So, after that avalanche of data, we can see that all the different point systems are fairly proportional to one another, as in the grand scheme of things relatively little changes. What does change is that John Surtees, Jochen Rindt and James Hunt are all no longer champions, and Jackie Ickx and Eddie Irvine are new champions. Nelson Piquet, Niki Lauda, Ayrton Senna, Michael Schumacher and Mika Hakkinen all lose a championship. Lauda then gains one alongside Graham Hill and Damon Hill, and most remarkably, Prost gains 3, meaning he ties with Lewis Hamilton with 7 championships to his name. On the constructors front, there are no changes after both drivers' results started being counted in 1979. Before that, however, Vann will never win the championship, Ferrari lose 1 championship but gain 2 others, McLaren, Tyrrell and BRM all gain a championship, and Lotus lose 3. I think the main thing to take away from this, as he's the driver most affected, is that it shows just how good Alain Prost was, who in real life came within 15 points of winning 7 championships, and with modern points comes within 6 points of winning 8. At the end of the day, the real results work best, as the idea of Eddie Irvine being champion and Jochen Rindt not is probably something that a lot of people would find quite jarring. So, to end, after all the numbers we've seen, here are the top 10 drivers ranked by career points using the modern points system, and all real-life champions ranked by career points using the modern points system. That's all for this video. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, share and subscribe. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Brook_F1, and I'll see you all next time.